Hi everyone, welcome to the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves and I'll be your host. Our subject tonight is Unix. We've got a couple of great guests, some great things to give away, so stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Portions of this show have been made possible by PC People, Houston's user-friendly source for business software, serving the business and academic communities. Call PC People at 789-6300 and talk to our dedicated staff when you're looking for intelligent answers to your software needs. And by Total CAD Systems, specializing in the sales, service, and support of CAD software and hardware for the PC, Macintosh, and Sun. Total CAD Systems is an authorized dealer for AutoCAD, the leader in computer-aided design software. Call 721-CADD. And by GDT Reprographic Services. Providing documentation to the professional design industry using advanced technologies and personalized service. GDT, where you're more than a number. Call for free pickup and delivery.
The old computer you're putting out to pasture has the power to give new life. Computers you're going to scrap can keep millions of people from ending up on the scrap heap and being written off. Old computers donated to the National Christina Foundation are used to train people with differing abilities so they're alive with the skills society needs. Donate your old computers and other equipment to NCF. Call 1-800-CHRISTINA. Machines you can write off. People you can't.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, this is the American Computer Enthusiast Show and my name's Steve Reeves and I'm the host. Our subject tonight is Unix. We've got a few things we need to do as announcements, but before we do, for the first time, I thought we would say exactly why we're doing these shows and what we're doing. What I did was, we have a couple of reasons we're doing it. One, we decided to do one on Unix, is because we do have a hotline, and I'll explain what the number is later, and so you can call and leave comments and things. But a lot of people have been leaving comments about they'd like to see other things besides PC programs and PC, so we decided to do a show on Unix. And we also decided to do it because there's been a lot of demand for this. I mean, Unix, even though it's been around for a long time, seems to be more popular than ever right now. So the ways I thought this would be a good show for a number of different computer users. One would be people that use Unix now and have some questions and want to stump our guests. Not really though. People that are just interested in Unix and want to know more about it. People that aren't sure about Unix, and also people that might want to are using DOS now and they want to find out what the difference is between DOS and Unix. So if you have any questions, you can call in. And the phone number, by the way, is 861-6283. So before we go to go to our guest, I thought I want to get some business out of the way. First thing is, like I said, this is a live show. The phone number is 861-6283. A little slide will pop up and show you that number. We do have a hotline, and this show is proof that we do listen to what people call in and when they do leave their messages and comments and things, because there were a lot of people that wanted to see a show on Unix. So that's why we're doing this show. And the phone number for that is 587-5369. And there will be a little slide at one of the breaks that'll show you the phone number in case you didn't write that down. I'll say it again. It's 587-5369. I have to look up my notes for that number. I memorized the other one, but I can't remember the hotline number. And also, next week's show, I know it's a little early for next week's show, but next week's show will be on the highlights and things of Comdex. Comdex starts next week in Las Vegas, and we've got some people that are coming and tell us what they saw, new things that are coming out, what's happening, all kinds of new things. And then the following week is Thanksgiving, Thursday, so we won't have a show on Thanksgiving. We'll all be, well, by the time the show would have started, we'll all be happy because the Oilers will have beat the Lions, and everyone will be happy and everything else. Hopefully they'll beat the Lions. So I guess, well, now we got the business out of the way, we might as well start and introduce our guests. We have two of them tonight. First one, I don't know if we want to, well, we'll go to him later. The first one is Dave Close. He's the owner and CEO of Uni-Komp here in Houston. And our second guest is O.D. Souls, and he's the vice president. Well, it's up on the monitor right now. That's Dave. And sorry about that. And the other guest is O.D. Souls, and he's the vice president. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Why don't we start off, before we go into, now that I've introduced you so people know who you are, and it is Uni-Komp is the name of your company. Why don't you tell, OD, why don't you tell us just a little bit, a synopsis of what your company actually does? I mean, you do, it's called Uni-Komp.
Uni-Komp, and we are basically a multi-user computer solutions type company. We do Unix as our primary business, support custom programming, hardware, as well as Unix training. We have 4 different Unix classes.
All right. And by the way, one thing we want to say is we're going to give away something, and they volunteered, I guess, or whatever you want to say, that they'll give away a class, a Unix class. And what's the retail value of the class would be?
It's $595, and it's our introductory class.
$595. It's an introductory to Unix class, and we're going to give away to the 3rd caller. So don't forget 861-6283. So the 3rd caller will be the lucky caller, win that class. So that way you can learn Unix.
Sure.
So I guess the best way to start this off is the $20 million question: what is Unix? Who wants to answer that question? I mean, that could take the whole show, I guess, but who wants to answer the question of what is Unix?
Well, we'll make it short and simple. It's a multitasking, multi-user operating system, very similar to DOS. A lot of people don't know that DOS derived from Unix, but it did. And it provides an environment where, similar to networking, where many users can use the system and each user can do multiple things at the same time. So Unix is an operating system. Was invented, if you would, back in 1969 by Bell Labs. Quite a long history. I could probably, again, take the whole show going through the history, but basically it wasn't available commercially in the 1970s, even though it was invented in '69. But they did make it available to the universities and some research environments. Really became commercial at the end of the '70s. And the first commercial application, I believe the first commercial license, was a company called Interactive, which is almost still around today. But people like Microsoft got involved even back in the end of the '70s. Unix was Bill Gates' first choice, from what I understand, of the operating system for his PC platform. It didn't work out, and DOS derived from that. So you see a lot of similarities between DOS and Unix, I think, for that reason. In the '80s, AT&T continued to, well, actually they started licensing it more heavily in the early 1980s. And Xenix, which was the Microsoft version of Unix, was also licensed and became available on the Intel platforms. The AT&T or Bell Labs version, really System 3 was the first real live version after their split up. I think started around 1983. Boy, that's a long history. I'm trying to think of...
that is one thing I was going to bring up. There seems to be a lot of different types of Unixes.
That's what makes the history complicated, is because of the various versions that involved. One of the whole ideas behind Unix was that it was a portable operating system from one hardware platform to another. As the different licensees started to license it, they got the source code and they could basically do whatever they wanted to with it. The only thing they couldn't do is call Unix Unix. So you had everybody that was putting out their version by different names. Xenix, IBM's is called AIX, Mac's is called AUX,
right.
Ultrix for DEC. So you have all these different versions. In the 80s and more recently, people have said that if Unix was ever going to survive, it needed to be standardized. And there was a push that started in 1988 to standardize Unix. AT&T said, hey, we invented it, we ought to be able to standardize it. But they were cutting special deals with companies like Sun. Plus, because of getting into the computer business, a lot of the other vendors said, well, wait a minute, you're going to have first crack at this coming to market, so that's not right. So another faction broke off that was headed up by IBM, and we basically had two camps, at least two camps, and there were a couple more, like Berkeley, that were involved in it, vying for the standard version of Unix.
Right.
Basically, what has happened through all of that and through today is that System 5, which is AT&T's standard, is basically the standard today.
Okay. What kind of companies use Unix now? I mean, is it I don't know a whole lot of individuals that use Unix. Most people seem to use DOS, but a lot of big companies use Unix, right? I mean, is that the way it is, or is it changing? Are there more and more people that? One of the questions I have, 4,000 questions here that I've made up just for me. That I have a bunch of questions, but things like software and things. A lot of people, like we were talking about earlier. One of the things that scares a lot of people with Unix is the, is there software available? Things like Lotus and spreadsheet. I mean, different spreadsheets, databases, and things like that. Are there, what is it that's out there? Is it big systems, or is it small, or is it?
Sure, there's a lot of things. There's third-party directories that are available. I know that there are over 3,500 applications today written for the Unix environment. As far as who uses it, originally a lot of scientific engineering type individuals used it on a workstation level. Today you find a lot of Unix in larger companies because of its power and its abilities to do transaction-oriented processing.
Right.
It's very well suited to an accounting type application. Anything that's heavy database or accounting is very well suited. Find a lot in the small to medium-sized business as well as large business.
All right.
Well, a lot of what's happening, the buzzword nowadays is downsizing, and downsizing means that the corporations are going from the mainframe environment and downsizing to where they'll have a mainframe, but they want to put the computing power in the hands of the users that are actually using it.
We need to take a quick break here. Hold that thought. Don't forget what you're saying. Anyone that just tuned in, we're doing a show on Unix. So sit still, stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Shamu.
And the Texas tuxedo.
Shamu.
We go everywhere he goes. Can help us make a great big splash. If we all get rid of roadside trash.
Shamu.
And to all this message reaches.
Shamu.
Don't forget about our beaches. Can lend a hand or fin. Come on, let's all pitch in.
Yeah.
Don't mess with Texas.
Shamu.
He protects all living things in the forest. But he can't do it alone. Please don't play with matches. Put out your campfires. And never ever forget the words of Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
That's my dad. And that's Mom. Dad's got an idea, a way to get rid of all the grody garbage that's polluting the world. He's invented a big rocket ship to shoot all the garbage into outer space. Mom's not sure, but Dad says his invention will save the world.
There's an easier way to save the world. Recycle. For your free recycling action guide, write Recycle. Environmental Defense Fund, 257 Park Avenue South, New York, New York.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, this is the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves, and I'm your host. We've got two guests tonight. We've got Dave Close, and we've got O.D. Souls, and they're both from Uni-Komp, and we're talking about Unix. We've already explained what Unix is and everything, and I just want to make sure that, for people that are just tuned in, we are going to be talking about all kinds of things, talking about, how it differs from DOS and what's good, disadvantages, advantages, all kinds of different things about Unix. So make sure you stay tuned, and you can call in, too. This is a live show tonight. It is November 12th, in case you didn't know it, because we do repeat this show, and sometimes people call in when they repeat the show, and they try to call in and can't understand why nobody answers the phone. It's because it's not live when they repeat it. But anyway, that's another story in itself. And the phone number is 861-6283. So if you have a question, call in and try to stump the guest. And the third caller will win well, we're doing a giveaway for a Unix class, an introductory to Unix class. We've got some callers, so why don't we go ahead and take some callers right now. You want to do that? Let me turn the phone on here. Leslie, do you have a question?
Yes. One is, I understand that Unix is the only software language that is approved by the U.S. Department of Defense because of its encrypting of the password system, of the password. Is this the same Unix you can run on your PCs now that we have broken the memory barriers on the PC? Plus, also, I'd like to know whether programs compiled under DOS and Boolean, using Boolean, C++, or Microsoft QuickC, are those programs also able to run on your Unix system?
Okay, the first question on security, Unix does have C2 security now, which is a government security requirement. I understand NT is also supposed to have that. I wouldn't say they're the only, it's the only operating system that meets that requirement. Certainly a lot of others are going to meet that requirement so that they can bid on those government contracts. The second question was?
C++, recompile.
Anything that is compiled under DOS won't run in its compiled form under Unix. There's a couple of ways you could do that. One would be when they talk about portability into the Unix environment, you can move your source code over and compile in the Unix environment, and assuming you've followed the C programming rules that are applicable in Unix, then your program would run. You could also run DOS under Unix and compile those programs on a Unix machine. So that might be another way to get around it as well.
C++ is available, in, at least in the SCO Unix environment, which is an Intel-based Unix product.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, and thanks for calling. We've got some more callers. You want to take another one?
Sure.
We've got Irv. Irv, you have a question?
Yes, please.
How you doing?
Yeah, fine.
I knew you'd call.
What is the essential difference between DOS and Unix?
Good question. What's the difference between, I guess that could take the whole show. What's the difference between Unix and DOS? I guess.
Well, to me, the main difference would be that DOS is multitasking in the windowing environment. It's not even multitasking in a pure DOS environment. Unix is multi-user. It was designed, originally invented to be multi-user. By multi-user, we mean that in an office environment, you might want to hook up 15, 20, 50 users like we typically hook up that are all using the same machine at the same time without networking cables, just dumb terminal interfaces. So for accounting type packages, database type work. In addition, OD had talked about other software, WordPerfect, Lotus 123, a lot of the common software packages in DOS are available in Unix as well. I see that as the primary difference.
So what you're saying is that you don't need networking to have multi-users using a Unix operating machine, is that right?
That's true.
Well, what about the Macintosh operating system? Can you use Unix on a Mac, on the Motorola chip?
Yes, the version on the Mac is called AUX. Again, when Bell Labs or AT&T licenses Unix, they say here's the source code and you can use Unix, you just can't call Unix. So Mac's version is called AUX. In our office environment, we're in the process of hooking up a Mac on a regular Mac network, into our network of Unix computers, which is, again, a whole different subject. The idea of networking multi-user systems together.
That's another show.
Is there a special language that you program Unix with? Or do you use C++, or all the rest of the, like Fortran or Pascal? Or is there a special language to program for Unix operating system?
C is the native language of Unix, but Unix supports almost any other language that you might want to run. You can buy just about any kind of compiler that will run on a Unix box, even though C is the native language.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for calling, Irv.
Okay, Steve. Bye-bye.
Hey, we have another call. You want to take another one?
Sure.
This is the winner, I guess. This will be the winner. Is it Chatu?
That's right, Steve. Hi.
How you doing? Do you have a question?
Yes, I had a question about different kind of graphical interfaces on Unix, the Motif and X11. Could the panelists talk a little more about that?
All right. What do you want to know about?
Well, are there any kind of standards, like does Motif run on all the versions of Unix, or?
Yeah, Motif, there are two primary competitors, if you will, in the graphical environment. Motif and OpenLook, which is a Sun product. Those are both at the user or the environment that the user sees. Now the X11 is the base package that they both run on. So there are different implementations and there are different desktop managers, if you will, but they run on basically on top of all versions of Unix on the market.
There is a new version of Unix that's to be released at the end of this year that's a joint venture between the shoot-off company from AT&T, which is called USL, and Novell. I think the last name I know for that product, which has changed names several times, is Univel, and that version is supposed to run both graphical interfaces.
Right, thank you.
Great. Thanks for calling.
Bye.
We have another caller. We might as well just keep going here, right?
On a roll.
Gordon, do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Great.
I develop COBOL software for national distribution. What COBOL compiler should I be using that will run on both the PC or DOS and the Unix environment? And I'm going to flip my mute back on so I can hear your answer.
All right.
And I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to answer that one. I'm familiar with the COBOL, many COBOL compilers that run under Unix. We're not as DOS expert as we are Unix experts. What version are you running?
I think
DOS 2.12, and I'm going to switch over to Micro Focus.
I know the COBOL, what is it, the 70?
RM85 is probably the most popular COBOL in the Unix environment.
That's pretty much the one that most Unix people use.
You're saying I should switch over to Ryan McFarland.
That's the one that's the most prominent in the Unix environment. Micro Focus today does not run in Unix, to my knowledge.
I think probably the best thing on that one would be if you want to give us a call tomorrow, we can do a little research on that for you, because I don't know the answer to that one off the top of my head.
What's your phone number there at Uni-Komp?
895-9900.
Did you get that?
I'll flip my mute off. Will you give that back again?
What name? He said he has mute on. Say your number again.
It's Uni-Komp, and it's 895-9900.
Got it?
I got it.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
All right.
We got another caller. We're never going to have any questions here. Is it Avi? Do you have a question?
Yeah. Are there any shell script compilers available?
There was one that I was aware of that was advertising for a while, and I went looking for them about 6 months ago. And I'm not aware of one now. What he's talking about is being able to take a shell script program that you've written and say compile it to the C language. Is that, I'm assuming that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, to compile it to an executable image.
Yes, I'm not aware of anybody that's doing that now. I'm not sure what happened to the company that I saw advertise for the last 2 or 3 years. Again, you've got our phone number there. I can do a little bit. We can do a little bit more research on that for you. I'm not aware of one off the top of my head.
What if you use the seashell instead of the born shell?
It wouldn't make any difference.
Does that answer your question? I don't know if we really answered it. But.
Yeah, I'll call him tomorrow and find out.
Okay.
Thanks.
That'd be great. Thanks for calling. Some of these questions kind of go along with a lot of the questions I have, like advantages and disadvantages and things. But what Irv said, I brought up a question about what's a typical configuration for a PC running Unix. I mean, like, let's say SCO Unix. What would you need as far as a PC? Would it be, you know, as far as RAM and hard disk space and everything else?
Your minimum configuration for an Intel-based Unix machine is going to be, minimum configuration to make the operating system loadable and executable is going to be 4 megabytes of RAM and at least an 80 megabyte hard drive. And it does support color, VGA, whatever. Recommended, as people use machines more and more, that you're going to be looking more 150 megabyte drive minimum. 8 megabytes of RAM is a more realistic picture. And it depends on how big of a work group we're talking about. If we're talking about 32 users on a system, then you're probably more in the 16 megabyte RAM range. And how heavy are your applications? How much disk do you need?
Yeah, because the prices of hardware, as everybody knows, are coming way down. And just the operating system itself takes up a lot, not like DOS. Even though DOS is getting bigger and bigger, DOS 5.0, Unix takes up a huge chunk of that hard drive. I mean, Unix
Sure.
does, the operating system does.
Depending on the version, SCO Unix, for example, the runtime operating system is about 35 megabytes alone.
And that right there, I mean, that's like, I know on the Sun, because we sell Sun this, and the Sun operating system, Unix takes up.
Is much larger than that.
You get a, 107 meg hard drive on some Suns, you might as well forget about putting anything on it except just the operating system.
For those that are interested in working or playing with Unix, there are companies that also sell versions that run under DOS. They'll emulate Unix under DOS and give you all the commands you can play with.
Right.
So if you're in a training mode or you just want to kick it around a little bit, you can do that. Also, if you're running SCO Xenix, which is the non-System 5 compliant version of Unix on a PC platform, you can generally get away with 1 to 2 megabytes of memory, and it only takes, say, 10 to 15 meg of hard drive space. And you can also partition your disk for DOS and for Unix and boot either or. So a lot of alternatives there.
Yeah, well, one of the things I did was I brought some books, like I say, because I have all these books because I'm a nerd, but all these different things. But one of the books that I did bring was, it's called Learning Unix. I don't know if anybody can see this, Learning Unix. I buy all these books at Bookstop. That's a plug for Bookstop. But you can see what this is. It actually comes with a disk. It's got, like you were saying, it has the commands that you can actually run like a shell of DOS on it. And what it does is it actually allows you to put commands in. Like one of the questions is that we're going to talk about a little bit is how they compare like DOS, like LS. You type in LS to do a list like you would DIR in DOS. And this allows you to do things and check things out by using, and this, I think this book was like $39, but if you have one of those Bookstop cards, it's cheaper. I always feel like there's a cover charge for me to get out of Bookstop. I can't get out of there without spending, too much money. They love me when I walk in there. But I brought a bunch of different books also. While I'm at it, I'm on a roll here, so I might as well keep going. Teach Yourself Unix, can you see that? A DOS User's Guide to Unix, and all kinds of different things. There's some great books, and that's one of the other questions I was going to ask you. We might as well, I can ask you right now, what's a great way for people, are there any good ways besides taking your class? Learning Unix. I mean, I know there's books and there's videos. What would you suggest is an easy way to learn Unix? I mean, is that the best way, is take classes and books?
I think so. I think reading Unix is a rough way to go. It's good for learning the basic commands, but if you're looking for fundamental concepts and the things necessary to actually run a system, probably a class is best. Or there are a lot of videos around now that are pretty good.
Right.
That you can look
Yeah, I find that I buy all these books, and between all of them, I can figure out the one question that the answer what I have, because they all have a little bit of what I want, but not all together. But I find, and also we were talking about magazines, and there's periodicals like like
Unix World, Unix Today.
Open
Systems today.
And there are users groups too. Isn't there one through Hal PC, or is it actually just a separate one?
I think Hal PC has a SIG, but there is actually a group here in town called Unix, H-O-U-N-I-X, which is a Houston Unix users group. Very good organization.
And they have meetings and things. And
every third Tuesday of the month.
All right, great.
And we meet at the Hess building.
Oh, so guys go to the meetings and everything? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we've been very heavily involved in the users group. Myself and another person from our company are currently on the executive board. Dave is a past president of the group. We've been very heavily involved.
All right.
Anybody that's interested in that group can give us a call again at our 895-9900. Give you the number tomorrow.
All right. We have some more callers. You want to take another caller before
Sure.
we keep going here? One second, turn the phone on here. Bob, do you have a question?
Yes, good evening, Steve. Excellent program tonight,
Thanks.
considering I make my living selling Unix systems.
Great.
I wanted to find out what these gentlemen's opinion is of the OSF standardization of Unix that is being looked forward to by many of the companies out there. And I'll hang up and listen to the response.
All right. Thanks for calling.
From the reading that I've got, OSF is alive, but not a competing, not in competition for the standard like it was a year or two ago. But a lot of the things that they have invented, a lot of the technologies they've come up with are being incorporated in the new System 5 releases that are coming out. Again, I don't think it'll be a standard. They have some. The concept of a microkernel, for example, is one concept that I think is being used by some of the people that are implementing versions of Unix. The microkernel concept is where you have not a full-blown Unix kernel running underneath, but a microkernel that will allow system calls from several different operating systems, not just Unix, so that you can run multiple operating systems on the same platform with a microkernel. I think that's been a very good concept that they've come up with.
All right. I think he hung up already. So actually, I disconnected him. So.
He said he was hanging
up.
up.
Okay, good. Good thing. We're going to have to take a break here. So why don't we, everybody get their questions ready, call in, 861-6283. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
The old computer you're putting out to pasture has the power to give new life. Computers you're going to scrap can keep millions of people from ending up on the scrap heap and being written off. Old computers donated to the National Christina Foundation are used to train people with differing abilities so they're alive with the skills society needs. Donate your old computers and other equipment to NCF. Call 1-800-CHRISTINA. Machines you can write off. People you can't.
Want to know how to turn your kid off to school?
Want to really make us not care about learning anything?
Tell me you got to school with no help from your parents, and I'll have to do the same.
When the teacher invites you up for a talk, don't show. Keep on saying girls are no good at math. That'll turn me off.
Face it, when parents don't care, kids don't care. Then they don't learn.
Show me a parent who really cares, and I'll show you a kid who can learn.
When friends don't stop friends from drinking and driving. Friends die from drinking and driving. Friends die from drinking and... Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, I say this every time. This is the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves, and we have two guests tonight, and we're talking about Unix. We've got Dave Close, and we've got Odie Souls from Uni-Komp here in Houston. This is a live show. The phone number is 861-6283, so call in with any questions you might have about Unix. If you have any questions about, what's new, what's coming out, any questions you might have, problems, anything, problems with, home life, or, no, I'm just kidding. Anyways, we've got some phone calls. We might as well take the next one. Want to take the next phone call?
Sure.
Okay, hold on a second. We've got Austin. Do you have a question?
Actually, I'm going to be commenting on a question earlier called about COBOL.
All right.
I've done quite a bit of work with COBOL in the Unix environment.
All right.
And microfocus COBOL runs on the PCs as well as under Unix, and it was probably the leading COBOL now, and has surpassed RM COBOL, which also is still available. Another COBOL is Acu COBOL out of California that is available too and quite popular. And that version, Acu COBOL, actually even runs on the I think, what is it, Current or Concurrent or something? That's a little $99 Unix package.
Coherent, that $99 one?
Yeah, it runs on that also, I found out about a week or so ago. But Microfocus seems to be the premier COBOL right now. IBM adopted it and logoed it as IBM COBOL on the RS-6000. Also, Sun has initiated it on the Sun Spark stations. And therefore, because of those two major players, I would seem to indicate it's probably the major COBOL now. It also has some GUI development tools to develop GUI applications on Windows and port those over to Motif. And there's also some other very good utilities that I've used for GUI development from another third-party, Flexus International out of Pennsylvania, to develop either text-oriented screens or to develop GUI applications. And they can be developed on a PC and ported right to the RS-6000 or Sun Spark Station or SCO Unix and supposedly Destiny when it's out. And I'd have one little question, other than those comments, see if you gentlemen could comment on what you think is going to happen in the next year or two with Unix and Destiny and the battles between Spark and CISC processors in the Unix arena and how it's all going to compete against perhaps the Microsoft Windows and the NT environment. And I'll hang up and let you all comment on that.
Great, thanks for calling. Thanks for coming back with your comments.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That'll save us one phone call tomorrow. He asked the messy question, and that's the state of the Unix market today and what we see it doing over the next 6 months or a year. We are looking at all of the players in that market, but the big competition right now is for the desktop market on the PC. Everybody wants a piece of the pie that Microsoft has. So what's happening is he had mentioned Destiny, you've got USL, which is the shoot-off company from AT&T, coming out with a desktop shrink-wrapped, low-price version of Unix for the desktop, again, that will compete against Microsoft Windows or NT, whatever ends up in that environment. You've got Sun coming out with Solaris. They bought Interactive Unix, and they want to bring the Sun version of Unix to the Intel platform. So that's going to happen over the next 6 months to a year. You've got the Next Step box. They're vying for that market. SCO has a version called Open Desktop, so they're vying for that desktop market. And then you've got Windows NT, and to be honest with you, I don't think anybody knows where all that's going to sort out. It goes all the way from Windows NT is going to be the death of Unix to a combination of USL and Univel together, maybe being the death of some of the other things that are going on in the market. So that's not an easy one to answer right now. We're looking at it. A lot of that has been announced. Nothing's been released. I think it's going to take a couple years for things like Windows NT to sort out and become stable. One of the advantages is that Unix has been around for so long, and one of the reasons it's becoming popular is because it's had plenty of time to stabilize. That's not going to be true of these other versions that are coming out.
Yeah, because it has a huge user base right now, right? Unix.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. All right, we have some more callers. I don't know if that
he had
answers
a
your
second.
question.
He had a second question on the CISC RISC.
Oh yeah, comparing
The CISC RISC platforms. That will be. It's hard to say. The RISC environment is well suited to engineering, graphical applications. Also well suited to very large applications, very large users. The CISC platforms, the Intel-based platforms, are well suited to relatively small work groups, say 100 users and down. And then the Intel multi-processing platforms, which Unix can take advantage of, can grow to be quite large as well.
All right. He's already hung up.
He's already hung up.
We've got some more callers. You want to take them?
Sure.
I think we have Leslie. Do you have a question? Is this the same Leslie that called before?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay, great. I was going to say 2 Leslies in one night, I can.
Yeah, we're pretty unique creatures.
Oh, okay.
Odd, some people say.
Do you have another question, or?
Yes, the drivers that are coming with this standard Unix package, will it operate most of the PC-type printers, or do you have to have special drivers written for it in the kernel and the shell? And also, what's the going price now for a Unix operating system on your PC?
That was my next question. I was going to have my list of questions was what are the prices, and now it's great.
I'll let OD handle the prices. Let me handle the drivers first. Drivers per se don't have to exist in Unix for the printers. There's a standard print driver. All of the interfaces with the Unix printers is done through software, and there's a wide variety of model files in Unix that work with just about any printer that you can hook up parallel or serial.
So like an HP LaserJet would be no problem?
No problem at all. And a lot of what's happening in the application environment is the applications themselves are putting fancier, if they need them, printer drivers in. Like a word processor, you would expect to come with files to define the most common types of printers in the Unix environment. So that can be handled either through the operating system or it can be handled through the application software. But we don't have any problem with any printer that we've pretty much tried to hook up in the Unix environment.
All right. OD, prices?
Unix, depending on what you need in a Unix package and how much, what your platform is, those type of things. SCO, for example, sells their system in a SCO Unix and a SCO Xenix version. Also is sold as either a 2-user or what they consider an unlimited user environment. The lowest price being SCO Xenix 2-user, I believe comes in at $5.95. SCO Unix unlimited user is $12.95. That does not include compilers like your C compilers and the graphical front ends, those type of things. That's what they consider a runtime operating system. And they go up from there. I mean, an operating system for a Sun is probably $3,000 or $4,000, depending on your platform.
What about when you say like unlimited user? Would you put that on like a server? Is that how you do that, or do you have it on each individual station?
Well, in the Unix standard Unix character-based environment, you run a server machine. Unlike Novell, where you would have multiple CPUs, you only have one CPU, and the other workstations, if you will, are dumb terminals or DOS PCs emulating a dumb terminal.
So you could actually have like a WISE terminal or something actually hooked up, and you don't have to have brains in this thing, right? It doesn't
That's
have.
correct.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it lowers your cost per seat considerably. You're talking about a network versus a Unix box, a Novell type network. The money that you put into a server in Novell is about equivalent horsepower-wise to what you need in a Unix server, if you will.
Right.
And then your cabling is simple RS-232 type cabling or network cabling, but typically it's done RS-232, and it would go to a dumb terminal. So you're not buying a complete machine for every seat.
Right.
Just as an example of that, like in our office, we have multiple Unix systems that are networked together. So each Unix system can support multiple users. And then each Unix system is networked in via Ethernet to each other Unix system. In addition, we've got a Mac that we're in the process of hooking up into the network. We've got Novell hooked up into that network. The idea is from our desktop, we can reach any computer that's in our office just from our desktop. Another point on the pricing is some of the newer products we were talking about for the desktop market are supposed to go somewhere between $300 and $500 for a desktop version of Unix. A lot of those haven't been released, but those are numbers that I've seen.
All right. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
That was a long-winded answer, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I knew that it was based upon the number of users.
Right.
I didn't know whether that had changed in the last 3 years or not. But it is fairly expensive if you're just going to go with 1 or 2 users.
Yeah, typically you're looking at either a 2-user or a workstation type of package or an unlimited user type of package.
Right.
One other point to follow up. We'll just keep you on the phone here all night. The conception that people have about Unix being expensive compared to DOS, and I try to tell people this in my class. If you buy DOS, which has just a few utilities with it, you go to do some work and you find out, well, I need Norton this, and I need that, and I need this, and you've pieced this whole DOS system together with multiple packages that probably cost a lot more than Unix ever cost to begin with. Unix's philosophy has always been, let me give you all of the utilities and all the tools so that you don't have to go out and buy third-party products, and then you put the tools together to do what you want to do. So if it's expensive on the front end, it looks expensive when you compare it to the price of DOS, but I don't think that's a fair comparison.
I understand now.
All right. To answer any questions, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
We'll go to another caller? Sure. Gary, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. My name is Gary from Houston.
Great.
I just bought a new computer. Well, my first computer. I'm just getting into it. I'm not really sure what to do, and I don't have that much time to sit there and read books and watch videos or go to classes. I was wondering if there's some type of program out that it's a 60 megabyte 386. It's a Tandy, so it's not probably what y'all considered much of a computer. But I'm trying to get into it, and I've always wanted one and learn how to use it. Do y'all know of anything on the market that is all IBM compatible that I can purchase to kind of get me in deeper? It has MS-DOS 1 and 2. You know, it's a 3.5 disc. Do you have any suggestions, or
So you want to use Unix or learn Unix, or is this?
Well, I'm on desktop Deskmate right now, okay, and I'm kind of playing around with that, and I loaded DOS in, and I brought the DOS shell up, and I was kind of blundered on that program, so I got some help to get back to Deskmate Desktop and get rid of the DOS shell. I'm kind of stupid on it, so if y'all can think of anything that might help me and get a little bit more experience with computers and their different ins and outs, just let me know. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Gary, a couple of things there. Unix probably, at your level at this point in time, is probably not the way you want to go.
Yeah, I kind of figured that.
My suggestion, you're here locally in Houston?
Yes, sir.
My suggestion is probably to get in touch with the people at HAL PC. They meet once a month at George R. Brown. It's an excellent organization, and a lot of people there can help you. And I'm afraid if you put something on your computer that was Unix related, you would probably give it up pretty quick at your where you're at right now.
Yeah, I know I'm just kind of a beginner to call y'all, but it's the only program I know of that sits there and talks about computers, and I spend some money for this thing. So, you know,
I tell everyone to join HAL PC. I mean, I've been a member forever, and I mean, what is it, $25 a year?
Something like
$25. It's worth it for no other reason. It's a great newsletter that comes out every month. It's become a book almost, a magazine. But they do have their meetings. The last meeting was Tuesday, right? You just missed the last meeting. But they have a big meeting, talk about what's, new software that's coming out and everything else. But they also have SIGs on every single thing, from like Unix and databases and Lotus and CAD and everything else. It's a great $25 investment.
I think they meet the first or the second Tuesday of every month, and it's about 8 o'clock or so at George R. Brown.
And they've got over 10,000 people now that are members, so it's a pretty big organization.
Yeah, because I've picked up a lot of PC computer books and everything else, and most of the stuff that I read in those or see in those and what they talk about is just completely over my head.
There's a great book that I bought my wife. My wife subscribed to. It's called.
Thanks a lot. Rub it in.
No, I'm just saying. Well, she was computer illiterate. She's probably watching right now. I'm going to get in big trouble.
Yeah, you might dog house.
Yeah, I am. Well, I'm also forgetting about going home.
Okay.
But there's a book out there, a magazine called PC Novice. Comes out every month, and you can buy it at Bookstop. I've seen it there, but it's great, and it tells you it's pretty basic, but it goes through everything. It's a real good book.
Well, the other thing I'd suggest,
magazine.
You can get lost in the maze sometimes. I tried to give my dad direction when he first got started, But the idea is you bought the computer to do something. If you bought it to do word processing or spreadsheet, I would concentrate on those kinds of packages first and save the operating system type stuff till later on. You know, get some use out of it for what you bought it for.
Yeah, I'm kind of playing around with, doing checkbooks and diaries and stuff like that, kind of, learning the ins and outs, but it's probably my fault, but I get kind of bored with it real quick. I'm trying to learn too fast. I know that's kind of wrong, and I got, 2 books in front of me the size of telephone books, and, I really don't have that much time to read it, all the time because, I'm working 10, 12 hours a day.
Right.
But I've always been interested in it. My wife was a legal secretary, and now she works for Harrison Equipment. She has probably 3, 4 printers in front of her and PCs out the door that she runs.
Right.
And so I'm trying to start over completely from scratch.
Well, what you need to do is just, like he was saying, just keep on plugging away. We'll give you a month. They'll give you 2 months. Call back in a couple months and tell us how great. You'll be a nerd just like me in no time. You'll have pocket protectors and everything else and tape on your glasses and stuff and whatever. You'll be a computer nerd in no time. It'll be great.
I hope so.
Don't worry. Just hang in there.
Not to be a nerd, but I hope so I get better.
Oh.
Y'all take care, and I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for calling.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Want to take another caller? Sure. All right. Bill, do you have a question?
Well, it was not a question. It was I heard you talking earlier about Unix and its effect in the United States.
Right.
I was connected with a major telecommunications company, and I'm an enormous proponent of Unix. And I wanted to let the audience know, and also the other people, that outside the continental United States, Unix is the major operating system, period. It's not even of choice. In Europe, they've written it into law in the European community that all software costing more than $200,000 to develop or to implement must be Unix-based. All the telecommunication companies throughout Europe, throughout Asia, and Latin America and Mexico are all insistent and demanding Unix only. So I'm saying to people, hey, if you're going to do business outside the continental United States, you better get to Unix and fast.
All right.
Right, that is true. It's very, very popular in the European community.
Yeah, we're still waiting for our first calls for seminars in that area too.
I think one of the hard things here is nobody teaches it. I learned it when I was at Microsoft years ago, but nobody teaches Unix to anybody anymore.
Yeah, we teach 4 different classes.
Do you?
Sure. They're all 3-day hands-on seminars.
That's great.
Very, very fast-paced.
Well, I just wanted to add that because I just found out about HOUNIX, or Unix.
Right.
I just found out about you last week, so I'm hoping to come to the next meeting.
Great. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for calling.
Bye.
All right. We still got about 500 questions here we haven't gone through. By the way, we're going to take a break in just a minute here. I guess we might as well take one now. We're kind of at an ending point before we get into anything else. A couple weeks ago, Dean Crutchfield, one of our other hosts, had a baby. We've got a little picture of the baby, so we're going to show it at the next break here so everybody will see how cute he is. I still think they should have named it Steve, but they wouldn't listen to me. But anyway, stay tuned, and if you have any questions, make sure you call in 861-6283. Stay where you are. We'll be right back.
Of this show have been made possible by PC People, Houston's user-friendly source for business software, serving the business and academic communities. Call PC People at 789-6300 and talk to our dedicated staff when you're looking for intelligent answers to your software needs. And by Total CAD Systems, specializing in the sales, service, and support of CAD software and hardware for the PC, Macintosh, and Sun. Total CAD Systems is an authorized dealer for AutoCAD, the leader in computer-aided design software. Call 721-CADD. And by Arc Image, creators of award-winning computer graphics and animation. For advertising, illustration, presentation, and communications, ArcImage can show you a better way to tell your story.
Want to know how to turn your kid off to school?
Want to really make us not care about learning anything?
Tell me you got to school with no help from your parents and I'll have to do the same.
When the teacher invites you up for a talk, don't show. Keep on saying girls are no good at math. That'll turn me off.
Face it, when parents don't care, kids don't care. Then they don't learn.
Show me a parent who really cares, and I'll show you a kid who can learn.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. This is our last little segment here. In case you just tuned in, well, it's too late. We've already answered all the questions, really. No, actually, we have a couple more here. We have a few more minutes. This is a show on Unix, and that's what we've been talking for the last hour. One thing we want to do, I've got a few questions I want to ask here. One of them is that we haven't, I can't believe nobody asked yet, is one is connecting to a PC and also software compatibility. If I do something, for example, in Lotus on Unix, or in some other program like word processing, can I bring it across to a DOS platform? I mean, are the files compatible?
There are. Your Lotus and WordPerfect are both excellent examples. If you create a document in WordPerfect, either on Unix or on DOS, you can copy that out to a diskette, carry it over to the other platform, and copy it in, retain all of your document. Same thing with Lotus. They both, Unix, some versions of Unix support a program called DOS Copy, which is exactly what that's made for.
Right.
Copies a DOS format, take it out, put it back in. It was great. The other question was connecting to...
right, like,
connecting to
for example, in my office with Sun, I have a Sun system and PCs, and I use PCNFS. I mean, that's just one of many different ways, I'm sure, to connect things. I mean, through, how would you do it?
Yeah, certainly there are... a PC becomes a terminal on a Unix machine. That terminal can be connected either via serial connection or a Ethernet type connection with TCP/IP or some other facility. In your office, you're using in an Ethernet situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Coax.
yeah, almost every Unix installation we do has some PCs involved. Basically, you use a terminal emulation package like you would use a communications package like Procom,
right,
or something like that emulates a terminal that Unix can handle. Very simple.
Great. Well, we decided at the last break we're going to have another show because there's we haven't even touched the surface of Unix, and there's so many different things we can talk about. I went through about 30 of my 500 questions here. So I guess we'll have to plan another show sometime in a couple of months or something. So one thing I want to do is thank our guests. Thanks for coming to the show. And I hope all those people call. I can't believe how many people called tonight. I mean, it's great. I guess we really do have a huge Unix following, a Unix people following. Whatever
Unix is gaining much more ground right now in the computing business community.
That's great. So I guess we'll have another show. I guess that's all we have to show tonight. The one thing I do want to do is make sure you know the next week's show is the Comdex show. We'll talk about what's new and what's coming out. And make sure you call in our hotline and leave messages and things so you know what's going on. And I mean, so we can know what we want to do in future shows. I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.